Hi everybody, Happy Trees here. Melissa from Happy Trees. Tonight we're doing our first tutorial since we've had kits for sale. So I was out earlier this week delivering some of those to some local people around town. And I know we've at least got, I think Kim's going to be on here following along with us. So this is the first time that I've done the live video, but I've also tried to have people painting at the same time. So of course, you can ask questions by commenting on the live stream. And I also have my laptop set up over here. So if you're painting along and you're having like an issue and you're thinking, what am I doing wrong? Take a picture, message me on Happy Trees, and I will take a look at that and try to do some troubleshooting for you. So this is what you get in the kit. The beer does not come with it, but the kits I sold, I have an option for a single canvas. You get a paint palette. It comes with these little cups of paint here. So the way I'm going to do this tonight is I'm going to leave the paint in the cups instead of pouring them out onto here. And then I'm going to use this just to mix my colors. So I think I'll be able to show you guys pretty accurate measurements when it comes to mixing up colors as far as the recipe goes. So that's how that's going to work. And then we're going to be painting our waterfall picture over here. So I have this set up here so you can kind of see what we're shooting for. The cool thing about this picture, I've done this painting a million times because it's a very popular picture at Happy Trees. If you go to our Instagram, I think there's even pictures on our website of this same picture where it's got customers' results. So they do always turn out really cool. And it's pretty easy, but there's a couple things that are going to make it easy for us. And the biggest part of that is that this painting is going to start off looking really ugly for the first part of it. So if we can get through that and know that we've got steps coming down the line that are going to spruce it up and kind of make everything come together, that's when the magic happens. So I've done different versions of this. I've done some where we do some fall colors. Today I'm going to do kind of more of a spring palette, but choose your own adventure. So let's see. Oh, our brushes. The brushes that are included with the kit are this big bushy brush right here. And you've got like a medium-sized brush here. It's a flat brush, so you can turn it to make real skinny lines, real fat lines. And then we have a liner brush, which is just a skinnier brush. And I always have to forget one thing. So today it's my washcloth. I'm going to use a washcloth. You can use paper towels if you want. If you don't have a palette like this, just use paper plate or regular plate. It washes off. So, okay, let's get to painting. Cheers, everybody. Get a shadow sip there. So there are two components to this painting when we start, and one is going to be this color of the water, and then we're going to put in some shadow around it. But I want to focus on this teal color first. So I'm going to do this, taking the big brush. Give it a good squeeze when you take it out of the water because you want to get all that moisture that's hiding inside. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, let me put this up here, painting at the piano. I'm going to get a pretty healthy scoop, just something like that, whatever will fit on your brush. I'm going to transfer it over here. So you just get enough to kind of get in that little spot there. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to take, so this blue, this is probably 10 times the amount of blue that I actually need to paint this picture. So a little bit does go a long way if you're loading your brush up right. Now I want to get the tiniest little tippy toe of this blue because it's real strong. So when you add it in to your white, you'll see that that makes a pretty big difference for just a small amount of paint. A big mistake that a lot of times people make is if you add in too much blue to start and you immediately think, oh, it's too dark, maybe I'll just add more white. it just doesn't work that way. Your better bet, if you mix your color too dark, is rinse your brush off and start over. So get more white and then just really, really go slowly. Now I want to have a little bit of a teal shade to this. So I'm going to go in. I'm being careful not to contaminate my entire thing of yellow, but I do just want to just show you guys, you just, again, tiny, tiny tippy toe. And I'm going to mix that right in. Now, if it looks a little bit more like pea soup, you can always go in and add just the tiniest touch more blue. All right. So that looks pretty good to me. And what I'm going to do is my whole brush is now loaded with this color. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to stick the corner of my brush, just stick it down in your water. So you want to pick up some water on your brush. And then I'm going to just stir that all up into this color that I've mixed up. So I've thinned out my paint, in other words. I'm going to add just a little bit more water. And now I just want to start to get these color blocks in of where my water is going to be. You can see I've got this painting right next to it, but you won't have the luxury of having that measurement. But you can just go in and take your hand from the bottom. That's good enough. And what we're going to do is just go in. And all I want to do right now is just go in with nice, let me move this over, long brush strokes. Now, you can imagine that first little batch of paint that I mixed up isn't going to be enough to get me all over the painting. So I'm going to go in and just pick up a little bit more white, a little bit more blue. Same recipe. Oh, but see, look, I got more blue that time. That's okay. I'm going to still add a little bit more yellow. So if you get it too dark, one thing you can do is just pick up a little bit of white and then just touch the darker color. And if you go in and do it that way, you can kind of get a good mix there. I'm going to add a little bit more water.
Samantha Ward says you're measuring like they used to do with horses. She's about one hand high. Yeehaw.
All right. Yeehaw is right. One hand high. Now, if you go in here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to just, let's do that same thing. Or you know what? Let's use our brush. So on our brush here, you could probably go in and just make about the length of your brush, kind of right here in the middle. As far as how high, she's about one hand high. Yeah. All right, I'm just filling this in. Doesn't matter if this is slightly darker than this down here. You can just go in and pick this color of paint up, let it mix in. I've got another little strip here. I'd say this is about 3 finger spaces. So you can come in, just getting a little bit more paint, a little bit more water. Now I'm going to come in and go right over here. 3 finger spaces up. And let's just take this right over to back here. Again, I'm just pushing that brush down all the way. I'm just getting all that paint off. These are new brushes, so you might have a little rogue bristle or 2 in there. It adds texture. If you don't like the bristle, you can always go in and just kind of hit your painting. Okay, so we've got this waterfall, this area, and this area. And now we've got these 2 up here. So we've got 2 little separate waterfalls up here. But I'm just going to go in and do one more chunk that's going to be about a hand high. And I don't know, as far as how wide, maybe about the same as down here. So let's do my hand up here. You just want to make sure wherever the top of this is that you have room up here for foliage. And as long as you got some room, you're good. All these measurements have an ish behind it. So
roll with it, folks.
That's right.
That's what Samantha says.
That's what you got to do. And people that may be watching right now are like, Why am I watching this lady paint? She's just got some ugly turquoise blocks up here. But it's going to turn into something magical. Okay.
One Hand High sounds like a good band name, says Brent Urban.
That's right, it does. We need to get some... As soon as we're allowed to see people again, we need to have some musical guests on the show, because when I first started doing this, I was playing records, and I realized pretty quickly that I could be dealing with some copyright infringements if I did that. So for now, we have the sound of the brush. Okay, so you got some turquoise blocks on here. And now what you're going to do is you want to rinse the big brush out. When you rinse your brush, just really knock it around in the bottom. Bob Ross was right. You got to beat the devil out of it. I'm in my living room, though, so obviously I don't care about paint getting on a lot of things, but I'm trying to be somewhat careful.
Trust the mellish, Samantha Ward says.
The mellish. That's a new one.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, so now we're going to go into shadow color. And the shadow is just going to go all around. And for this recipe, what I'm going to do is take the brown, got the big brush, and I'm going to scoop, again, a pretty good amount on my brush. So it's kind of gloppy. And I'll put that in one of these. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to get the same amount of blue. So just a nice big glop. Very official measurements here. What you want when you start to mix the brown and the black together, you should start to see it turn into a color. Almost looks like black, but when you start putting it on the canvas, it kind of takes on this real deep evergreen color. So something like that. I'm going to take my brush, which is completely loaded with paint, but I'm going to dip it in the water. And I'm going to just go in, stir that up. All right, so we have a 50-50 mixture of brown and black here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in and kind of, let's just cut in around. So I'm being kind of, you don't have to, you can be kind of sloppy with your edges, because a later step that we're going to do is we're going to come in after we get our white water in, and we're going to make this foliage come out over the waterfall. And that's going to clean everything up real fast and real nice. So let's go like this. Again, don't worry about every single little brush stroke at this point. Right now, we just want to get this entire canvas covered. So once you're kind of cut in, a little bit more water. Every time I reload my brush, I'm getting a little bit more water. Now what I'm going to do is just go in and I am just pushing this brush down, and I'm doing these great big circles. So you can really see that green color once you start getting it on the canvas. A bit more paint, a little bit more water. And I just keep kind of flipping my brush over. So it's like, get all the paint off this side and then turn it over. And you can really make your paint go far by doing that. So I want to see all this texture in here whenever, that's kind of the reason I'm doing these circular brush strokes. You could go in and just fill it in with horizontal brush stroke, but I feel like by doing this, you already kind of naturally get the indication of some little bushy guys going on.
Where's the wine part of the class, says Samantha Ward.
Cheers, Samantha. We're drinking Boulevard tonight. We're sipping, just... I think I got sick of wine after like the first few weeks.
I First
I've had to
couple
borrow
weeks of
2 bottles
quarantine.
from my neighbor so far, though, so I can't say that. Isn't that nice that you've got neighbors that have a stock? Okay. So the canvas is covered. We have the foundation for our painting is there. Now the trickiest part right now is to rinse your brush well enough that we can go in and get some white paint and do, touching my face, and do some little water rapids. So when I'm rinsing, I'm just really, really, really knocking it around. Tap, tap. And then squeeze, squeeze. If you have any dirty paint water, just keep rubbing your brush on your cloth until it's gone. I really, really like these brushes for a lot of the things that we do, like when we come in and we do bushy trees, or in this case, we're going to go in and do some water. So the trick to adding kind of these waterfalls or these little mists is that you don't want to have a lot of paint on your brush at all. So what I'm going to do here, it's got the white, and I'm just going to go in and just kind of get the tip of the brush. When I need just the tip jokes. I did the joke. Okay. So I'm just going to come in and load the brush bushy. Oops, watch out for that. So what I want is I want my brush to be kind of splayed, and I want, let's see here. So I want the bristles to be covered, and I want them kind of splayed out like that, because when you go in here, now I'm also paying attention to the pressure that I'm doing on the canvas. So I'm really touching lightly, and I'm going to come in. So the water's kind of flowing this way, and then it's going to come down. So what you'll do is you come in and just let it, and then I just, see how I'm kind of following this horizontal line, and then I'm going to let it drop. So I'm going to come in and just, you have to reload a couple times. That's
Same.
Understandable.
Tell us about your home kit, partner.
I did. I went over it in the beginning. I showed all of these little kits here. So I did change it up. So I released kits. I had one kit that I was offering, and now I've kind of changed it up. There's 2 options. So you can get a single kit, which is 1 canvas. You get enough paint. You'd have extra paint left over if with the amount that we give, and then you get brand new brushes. What I'm using here, so we've got this one, big bushy, medium, skinny guy. But what you will see, and what's really cool about this picture, is that, let's see, I'm just dragging this down. If you're doing this and you start to feel like, oh, I'm getting my lines are too thick, or let's just do one. Let's make them. So if that happens to you, it's fine. A lot of times what you can do, if you want to soften something up a little bit, is you can go in with your fingers. You still want to be able to see that blue back behind. And then what I'm going to do, once we get down to about here, is I'm going to come in and just take more white paint. But now, instead of doing, my brush is loaded the same way. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go in. Now I'm pushing on the corner here. So I've just got this corner of the brush, but what I'm doing is I'm pushing.
What a deal.
See that? See the magic happen? Oh, thank you. It is a good deal.
We can use those brushes over and over again?
That's right. The brushes are yours. And then I decided I would have an option for a couple, so you can get 6 brushes and 2 palettes and 2 canvases. We're going to also be doing some instructions for some couple paintings. So we've got one coming up of the Nelson that I'm going to do. Okay, so I've got all these little bushy things here. Again, if you want to make it extra misty, you can kind of come in with your finger right along the edge here, and I'm just doing these circular brush strokes, and that kind of fuzzes out that whole little area there. Okay, so I also want to go in, while I have my big brush and my white paint, brush is loaded the same, I'm going to go in and I'm just going to do some horizontal lines down here. Now, again, most of the time, the problem people are having is they're using too much paint. So it's like just barely any paint, and I am barely touching the canvas. So I can have control. If you want to see more white, push a little harder. I'm being kind of subtle. I'm not worried about this because all that edging is going to get covered up. I'm going to take a little bit more white up here, and let's just maybe come in and add a few more, and right along where this water is rushing over the edge here. I'm going to make a few. All right, I'm coming in here. But again, I want to leave that turquoise color. I want to let that still shine through. Again, if you're feeling like, oh, you want to blend it in more, just take your hand and run it across. Okay. Now, I've got this little section up here. I want to turn this into two separate falls. So I'm going to still, big brush, white paint. So I still have the same brush, same paint, this entire time that we're doing this. I'm going to come in, maybe I'll go in and put just a little white right in here, so that kind of separates that area. And then right about the middle here. Now you could make a choice if you, at any point you can make adjustments to this picture. I've had people do this before where they just made this one big waterfall, so how many times I'll say choose your own adventure in this show, but that's 2 so far. Okay, and now again, I'm just going to, making this easy, just drag your brush, try not to get this shadow. I've been fighting with the lighting in here.
You don't have any shadows on there.
Okay.
That are very visible at that point.
So again, you can still see that if you need to get a little smoothing out there. And we'll go up and do that again up here. I'm going to start in the middle. I'm being a little bit careful because this is still really wet paint. So I am painting a little fast, so my paint is not dried all the way back there. But. And you can even turn your brush to the side if you want to get some little skinnier things. I'm just doing these quick little brush strokes, really light. If you start to put your paint on and it's going too heavy, just stop what you're doing, rinse your brush off. I almost went into the Humpty Rat, but I stopped myself.
Right, stop what you're doing because I'm about to ruin the image and the style that you used to. Funny, but you won't make no money, see?
What's this, that copyright thing? We're going to get gotten again.
Yeah.
So I loaded up when I uploaded all my videos on YouTube, I saw that there was a couple of them that said copyright enacted. And I was like, what's that mean? Clicked and it was the Goldfinger song playing in the background on one of them. So who knew? Learning as we go. Okay, so there is some water, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and just clean up these edges, and at that point I think it will look pretty good landscape, and then we're going to just put it over the top with some foliage and some big old trees. So Let's see. Let's go in. I'm going to revisit. I've already got this color mixed up. I still have some left over. You don't need a lot of paint for this. So you kind of load your brush up the same way that we did for our water here. So I'm just making it bushy, just getting those bristles covered and maybe picking one out. Okay, so this part's fun because all you have to do is just come in here and you just want to go in. And it doesn't really matter. You just want it to not look too uniform. So some trees are going to be bigger than others. Let me come in. I'm going to make this a little small. There's a little guy hanging out right over there. We're just peeking at these falls. I'm going to mix up a little bit more of that color of paint, but if you remember, it's just chunk of brown, chunk of blue, about the same amount of each. So we just go in right along where these edges are. And I'm using this like corner part of the brush to start. I'm just going to make this whole thing. It's hanging out over the falls here. So you just kind of bush up the edges, and all of a sudden you're looking through these trees to the secret waterfall. And maybe I can even go in like right along here and just add some foliage there. So anywhere you want, bush it up, just take the corner of your brush on. I feel like there's got to be a rope swing around here somewhere. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do before I move on from the shadow color. So I've gotten most of the paint off my brush onto the canvas. But right down here, I'm going to just go in and I'm just going back and forth. And what I'm doing is I'm letting the pressure off really slowly. So I don't have a lot of paint on my brush. And as I go down, I just let that pressure off. Let's do that over here.
Love a bush.
That's right. They're so easy to make. Bush it up. All right. So getting a little further along. So that was a really quick step that took us from teal rectangles with dark background to, hey, we got a waterfall and some trees. So now what we're going to do is we've got all of this area back here that's got shadows on it. And we don't have to do a whole lot on top of this. One trick that I like to do, I'm rinsing my brush. Again, try to get all that dirty paint water off. You can always change your water out if you feel like you need to. Okay, so this is kind of a magic trick. I'm going to take, got my yellow. I compromised it slightly, but I'm just going to. All right, so I'm just dipping tip of the brush. Let's go in. I'm going to use this area. Wherever you've got. This is why it's not a bad idea to also have a paper plate or a cardboard or another surface that you can use if you run out of. This isn't the biggest palette in the world, but okay. You don't want to use a lot of paint. We're loading it the same way we did with the white. And so when I come in here to apply my brush, I'm kind of holding it at an angle. So instead of pushing it straight in, my hand is angled like this. And so I'm kind of using the corners and the sides of the brush. And all I want to do is, for sure, like, okay, probably have a highlight in here. So this is just yellow paint. And I'm just going in and I'm tapping, and I'm also kind of twisting my brush around to get that yellow paint off. But you want to leave some shadow kind of in between. When I'm trying to go in and choose, let me get a little bit more yellow on my brush. And there's also kind of a shape when you're going in. So let me kind of do an exaggerated version. See how it's kind of like a line like that, but if you go in and you do that too uniform, it won't look natural. But see how I'm kind of just getting like that curve there. It's brighter on the top, and then maybe I'll come over here and there's like another. The shape is all kind of the same, but you want to make sure that similar but different. So you can kind of just go in and do those little, kind of pepper this yellow all around. It's part of the reason I like to use the circular brush strokes, because in the Happy Accidents world, those circular brush strokes, you can pick out like, oh, okay, here's a little round part, so maybe I can make that into a tree. So it kind of gives you a little bit. We're going to add some other colors, but really, I mean, theoretically, you could just go in here and get a little bit more yellow, and then I'm going to start to add some other colors on here. And on some of these places, I might go in and kind of soften it up just a little bit. The cool thing is if you overdo it with yellow at all, and you think, oh, that looks too much, you can always go back in with a shadow color and kind of break it up again. So let me just get a little bit more yellow. Down. Let's do some down here. Got a glare here. I got a flashlight in my. Okay. And maybe just a little touch here. Okay, so I just kind of want to throw a lot of that around. And then on this example, I kind of added in some, oh, there's like light blue, there's some lavender in here. The red buds are in full bloom right now. So again, you could kind of just leave it with this yellow, or maybe you could make some brighter greens, and it's the lush summertime. But I'm going to go in and add, let's do, okay, so we're talking about red buds. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to take just a little bit of white. This white's real goopy. Or thin, there we go. So white, and I'm going to get just a tiniest touch of red. Maybe just a tiniest touch more. And to this, we're just going to add like a couple of bristles of blue. And see, I feel like that's even slightly more blue than I want. But again, you can just kind of go until you get the right shade. And you just never know until you get in there. So let's try this. I'm going to load my brush up. Pushy. Let's start by just going real lightly. Like right in here. Now, when I'm doing these, I'm kind of going over. You want them to kind of start to layer. So I'm not trying to not touch the yellow. I'm just sort of going over it. And I'm barely touching, and I don't have hardly any paint. So It takes hardly anything to do this. And they don't have to be attached to anything. I'm just kind of going in and peppering them on the landscape. There's really a lot over there by the little water. Okay. Now maybe I'll take a light blue. So I'm going to rinse my brush off. On my palette, I already have this spot where I mixed up the watercolor. So I'll just go in and do a little something with that. Let's take a little bit of white. I'm going to be covered in paint. As usual. Tiny, well, see, the blue. I'm showing you guys to see how strong that is. Okay.
Looks like the Ozark Riverways, says Samantha Ward.
I've been on a river trip. Are the rivers closed? I'm sure. Sorry, I got all sad there for a minute. I was like, oh.
Everybody's probably missing it.
Yeah. Okay. So I got some blue. Again, I'm making this up, so this is not... I'm not telling you what kind of plants these are. I just know I want some color. And a little bit up here. And sometimes you can go in and kind of little smears too if you want. If you want it to look more soft. Just like another way you can do things. Sam's doing a giveaway with one of my kits through her picture KC Instagram. So when is that happening? Sam will answer if she's listening. I'm having to do a whole lot of new things that I've never done before in this time, so. But that's the message. Do it anyways. Even if you don't know what you're doing, you'll get better. I hope. That's the idea. Okay, that's nice. And you can even, if you want to just really push it over the edge, like you could take, this is just like a tiny bit of white. Let's go in and put some real bright highlights on some of these.
Deadline Friday. We're flying by the seat of our pants.
That's right, we are. We're doing it well. So Friday. So if you go to Picture KC, you can get entered in. You just have to comment on the post.
And it's a chance to win a free kit.
That's right. Okay. I mean, the hardest part is just to know when to freaking stop. And I could do this all day. And you could just keep going in and adding more and more details. But the fun part is going in, we're going to put a couple of big trees. I'm just going to use black for drama. Can you believe we've done this entire painting using good old trusty big bristly brush? I don't know why I'm making it into a tongue twister, but I think that's pretty cool. So if you saw this, you wouldn't think that it was just primary colors and one big brush, but that's all it is until we get to this guy, and then I have black over here. So just go in and get both sides. I mean, you can just load your brush up in the tube. I just get a little bit of water mixed in with it here. I get a little bit more paint.
It's a $55 value, cats and kittens.
That's right. She's been watching Tiger King. Okay. So let's go in and we're going to come from here and I'm just going to go bloop. Now I don't care. I need to go back and fill it in, but I always like to just get your shape in. So I'm turning my brush kind of on the side up here at the top, and then I'm just letting it get thicker as I get down here. Okay. I'll let that dry, and then I'm going to come over and do another one. This one's going to go all the way off the page. So let's go. I'm just making the line. Now down here you can see how you can turn it to where it's fatter. I'm just going to go right off the page here. A little bit more paint. Minute that right there, that's okay. Okay, so this one's bigger. Now, you can use the same brush. We did the fat lines, but again, you can see how you can turn it and have some skinnier lines. So for a couple of these branches, I'm just going to use this because I want to come in with just a few little branches. So I'm pushing harder down here where it's thicker, and then I'm letting that pressure off as I want it to get smaller. Now, there's a couple of things people do a lot when you're making tree branches that I see. So when you're deciding of where to put the other branch, try to avoid, I'm not going to go right here. I'm going to maybe go up just a little bit of ways from that. The reason is a lot of times people start doing like a chicken foot. So let me just draw a little chicken foot on here.
Chicken foot.
Where the branch, you don't want every branch to look like that. So you want to kind of stagger your branches out. I don't know. Does that look like a chicken foot? It looks like a person.
It looks like a person.
Yelling for help. Okay. It's the abstract portion of the class. Okay, so I'm just going to go in and maybe I make one come off here. But the trick to those branches, you want them to be thicker where they're coming out of the tree and getting thinner the further away. Every time you make a new branch, you're going to basically be creating a V, and just try to avoid making every branch right across from each other. And that's that chicken foot thing I'm trying to talk about. Let me do just a little here. And again, don't make your lines too straight. I see that a lot too. So I kind of almost have a little shake in my hand. These can overlap. You see, I kind of get a little. And I'm going to put maybe just, I'm not going to do too many of these branches because I mean, if you wanted to be fancy, you could like come in. I'm coming out over here. Okay. Just a little something happening here. Okay. Now I also have this little tiny brush. So you can take that, and this hardly holds any paint at all. So just kind of roll it around your paintbrush. And we're gonna just come in, and you might not even be able to see these very well. I don't know. I'm gonna come in and just do a couple of little tiny guys. And I'm also just gonna do like some little ones. They don't necessarily have to be attached to anything, but you can come in and just sort of do some little little twiggy things down in here. And that sort of gives some of this foliage. Okay, so I got some little branchy things back here. I might looks like he wants to have more of a presence back there. So this is just like a little bush that lives up here. Okay, and now I'm going to just go in and highlight those. So I'm going to take that same brush, I'm just using white, and tiny brush. Let's go in, I don't know, we can say the light's over here. So I'm just coming in with that little brush. Now if you feel like you get like that where it's like really stark, just come in, use your finger. But I'm going for pretty high drama here with these contrasts. Okay, let's come in. More. And see, like I don't care really about like perfect lines. I just want to get the paint on there. Where's that blue from? That's all right. Yeah. And I'm just going to come in. Okay. A little bit more. Doesn't have to just be one stripe on the side. You can kind of fill some in. All right, if you want to go in and highlight these little tiny guys, I guess you can do that, but this guy. All right, so I think I'm almost done. I'm going to throw in a couple of boulders down here just because those are always fun. Anything fun and fast, I'm going to cover it. And these are all tricks. I mean, of course, I watched Bob Ross growing up, but I am self-taught, and most of all these tricks that I'm showing you right now are from the past 6 or 7 years. I've been teaching people how to paint in a paint and sip environment. So the things I knew when I started, it's I don't know, it's been a really big learning experience for me, because when you're in a room with all of those people and everybody's painting and you're showing them what to do, and you go around, and over time it's like you start to see just these common thread mistakes that are just common for people to do. And so if people are following along with these videos and have questions about anything, like I said, send me pictures. I'm free to do video chats. If you want to talk about ways to improve your painting, I'm available for that kind of stuff. So reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm excited to see the paintings that people are coming up with. So let me put some boulders down here. Let's just do, I'm just going to dip right in here. Let's go. I'll show you. Let's see. I have my brush half loaded in white paint and half loaded in black paint. And what I'm going to do, that's a little bit better. I'm going to come in, and I want for the white to be on the top, but I'm just going to make some little boulders resting right around here. So what I'm doing is I'm coming in and just, so, all right, that doesn't look like too much, but what I like to do after I get that paint on there is come in and just kind of work around with my fingers, which will get very dirty. Let's see. So you still want the top to be nice and white. If you do that, you'll get kind of a nice highlight on the top, faded into. We're going to do a few more of those too. So let's go in and do maybe one right in here. Again. So I'm making gray just kind of by mixing it with my finger. Who needs a palette knife when you've got your fingers? And let's do some of that same trick with the small brush. I guess maybe the medium-sized brush. So I'm dipping half in white, flip it over, half in black. All right. Now I'm going to go in and just put some littler. I'll get a little guy back in here. And once you practice enough, you can just kind of know what you're looking for. But I'm making sure that I've got shadows on the bottom, strong highlights on the top. And I just kind of move that paint around. And if you lose any definition in the process of that, you can just take that tiny brush with some white paint. If you need to like re-highlight any tops. Okay. Oh, I just erased my little boulders. I forgot those were separate ones. That's funny. I can just go back in with a tiny brush and just add some little highlights in there. My paint's really wet, so you can just kind of, if you want to add some more little things in the front here, you just wait for your paint to dry a little bit. But I'm going to be fine with that. Okay, I'm just going to give this a little signature. Let's see. All right. Melissa Wine Women with Happy Trees signing off. This was our waterfall. Saturday night we're going to be doing, let me show you. Take a dismount off of my bench. Okay. Cool story. I did take a class when I was 16. It was acrylic paints, landscape. And this was the painting that I did. And I remember, it's been a long time ago, but I remember this was a class that I went in over the course of several weeks. It was probably an hour each time, something like that. But then after I had started Happy Trees, after a few years, I was like, I bet I could take some of these methods that I've sort of figured out along the way, because I could not remember how I painted that. But this version is one that I've done using kind of some of the tricks that we just showed here in this waterfall picture. So this is what we're going to be doing Saturday night, 9:30 p.m. So you can still order kits. There are limited supply. So
Kim Rosh says, thanks, Melissa.
how did you do? How was it? She doesn't have to answer. I'm like sitting here waiting for her to answer. We'll talk after the class. I'm excited to see the picture once you do it. So anyways, this is going to be Saturday. I have no idea what the date is. Happy quarantine, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
I can't get it to turn off. Because I can't reach the button over there.
Are we still shooting?
Mm-hmm.
Well...